Hi, my name is Frank Schaeffer. I grew up in the religious right as the son of one of the founders of the evangelical wing of the anti-abortion movement, Francis Schaeffer, along with C. Everett Koop. And I directed and produced the movies, the series, Whatever Happened to the Human Race. That was the companion to the book that basically broke open the anti-abortion movement wide with evangelical participation. I fled that movement, changed my mind more than 30 years ago, and have been trying to warn people since that the Christian nationalist movement that has emerged from that is a great danger to our country. But now here's a new wrinkle. Who would have ever imagined 20 or 30 years ago, when I was in the religious right, that an alliance would grow up between the totalitarian government of what was then the Soviet Union and is now Vladimir Putin's Russian dictatorship, and the religious right in the churches, the evangelicals, and big chunks of the Republican Party? Who could have imagined someone like Tucker Carlson being a shill on a so-called conservative network for the Russians? Fast forward to the present, and you see a repetition of history. Do you know that back in the 1920s and 30s, there was such an anti-Semitic movement in America led by people like Henry Ford and Lindbergh, the pilot, and others, that when the Nazis picked up the eugenic and anti-Semitic banner and began to run with it, with the German National Socialist Party led by Hitler, that there were many Americans who supported Germany, not because they supported Germany's effort to dominate Europe militarily, but first on culture war issues, which in those days was the Roman Catholic conservative movement led by people like Father Reverend Kuglin, who was a fascist admirer, Henry Ford and others who backed the Nazis and wanted to keep America out of the war precisely because they agreed with Hitler's culture war policies as he singled out the Jews for persecution. We have exactly the same situation here now, as Vladimir Putin is singling out gay people, trans people, liberal people, secular people for persecution, both in Russia, but also verbally, saying that the West is decadent because we allow gay marriage, saying the West is decadent because we allow transgender people the freedom to live in our culture. This is a repetition of one of the filthiest, saddest blots on American history. I remind you that Hitler stirred up not just support for the fascist regime and its intentions of dominating Europe by attacking France and Poland and eventually Russia itself, but because there were so many American anti-Semites in Christian circles, in fascist Roman Catholic circles led by radio personalities and others. We brushed this history under the carpet at our peril. It is now being repeated. The hate group being targeted now by Vladimir Putin in his expansionist, authoritarian government, in his violent quest to invade an innocent country, is a repetition of what we saw before. He can't come out and say, back my military operation, I want to dominate Europe by the force of arms, and repeat what happened when Hitler attacked Poland and then France and the other Western countries. So what he does instead is attack gay people and trans people in exactly the same way that Hitler garnered sympathy by people like Henry Ford and Lindbergh and others, precisely because they loved his anti-Semitism. They loved his stand for the Christian West. It's the same reason the Lutherans supported him in Germany. It's the same reason many evangelical churches supported him in Germany. It's the same reason that the Pope, in operating out of the Vatican at that time, was silent about so many of the tragedies that befell Europe, because he too regarded the Jews as an enemy of Christianity, cashing in on the long history of European anti-Semitism, both Protestant and Roman Catholic. History is repeating itself. A global predator, a dictator, a liar, a murderer, a man who has initiated rape as a means of war, a man who has bombed hospitals and orphanages and daycare centers and schools, murdered people, tortured people, killed civilians, has employed merciless mercenaries to fight for him in the Wagner Group and others. This man is playing the same card. He is stirring up Republican, right-wing, Christian nationalist support for his conquest of Europe by force of arms, not by asking for backing of his military operation, but by siding with the bigots in our country. And they are supporting him. Growing numbers of Republicans are now against our effort to help Ukraine defeat Putin, and they are supporting Putin because he stands with them against their common imagined enemy, gay people, trans people, and others. It's a trick we've seen before, but there's an open question. Will it work? Will he be able to play on the hatreds of American fascists, Christian nationalists, white supremacists, and others who now control the Republican Party, who now are sitting in Congress screaming at President Biden when he delivered the State of the Union speech, who sit in the pulpits of the mega churches and other places playing the Christian nationalist card? Will he be able to use them to support his conquest of Europe by force of arms, starting in Ukraine, by stirring up their passion and hatred in the same way that Hitler got American fascists who were anti-Semites to support his war effort by trying to keep America out of that war? The same card is being played. Wake up. My name is Frank Schaefer.